So I don't know,
David,
that this is the best path for us.
what would they be doing outside of the justices' homes before a decision comes out, after a leaked opinion?
Expressing their opinion. I mean, listen,
but
legally,
their
I don't think
opinion...
you're going to win on that. I don't think you're going to win on legally they were breaking the law.
In this one, we're going to have a look at a debate between Michael Knowles and David Pakman about protests in America today. We know the left likes to refer to January 6th as the end-all, be-all, and the right usually condemns the Summer of Love protests, right? But what does the written law have to say about protests and their legality? Let's have a look.
To make sure that we're not just in an echo chamber here, we're not just talking to ourselves. So I'm bringing on someone who I suspect is more reasonable than Joe Biden. I hope he's more reasonable than Joe Biden. This would be David Pakman. David, coming back to the show, nationally syndicated progressive talk show host on TV and radio. David, thank you for coming back to the show.
The first time went so well, I had to come back for seconds.
I knew it. That's why we invited you back. And listen, I was disheartened to see that Joe Biden and Jen Psaki would not condemn the protests at all hours outside of the justices' homes and residential neighborhoods before their families. I suspect, I mean this sincerely, I'm not being facetious at all. I suspect you are more reasonable than the staffers at the White House now. Can we at least agree this is bad? It is bad to protest outside of Supreme Court justices' homes?
Well, so I suspect you want to have a good faith conversation about this. Is that a fair assessment? So we can speak freely here. You're not just looking to play gotcha here.
I'm not. No, I really
okay,
not.
All right,
That's not what we do on the show.
So let's see. This is not a protest technique I would employ, right? But I have a large platform online where I'm going to reach way more people than going to anybody's house. So like my personal thing is, this is not a protest technique I would employ. Let's go through like legality, morality, ethics, etc.
Yep.
Anything that is a criminal act, like a Molotov cocktail, destruction of property, whatever, it should be reported. If there's a crime, people should be charged. If you can get a guilty verdict, they should be, sentenced. Fine. Very, very good.
Yep.
In terms of the speech aspect of this, there's this case from the 90s, Madsen v. Women's Health Center, which found that it's okay for anti-choice protesters to go and protest outside the homes of just random workers at abortion clinics. Okay, now that's not my opinion. That's a decision that exists.
Yep.
Those are quite literally private citizens. They're just like medical workers, right? So if that's okay and we have a First Amendment, certainly showing up and protesting isn't against the law. Are you and I on the same page about that piece?
No, because in the U.S. Code, 18 U.S. Code Section 1507, the federal law, explicitly prohibits protesting outside of the homes of judges with the intention of influencing their decisions. So if
the
they were...
The decision has been done, though.
No, it hasn't. The decision hasn't come out. There was a leaked draft of the opinion. So I would agree with you. It's not clear that they were in violation of the law if the decision had already come out and they were just expressing their anger. But because the decision has not come out, because it seems clear to me that the protesters are trying to change the course of how this decision is going to come and try to bring political pressure, to me it seems quite clear this is a violation of federal law.
No lawyer I've spoken to says that this is against any law unless some specific, if there even something as relatively benign as a noise ordinance, let's say there's a noise ordinance that starts at 10 p.m. Yep. If it's 11 and you're being loud, okay, now we have something to talk about. But that's
not the law that
lawyer who says there's any law being broken here.
That is the law. I mean, the viewers are free to go check it out. But that is a very specific law. There's actually a Virginia statute too. But I'm just talking about the federal law. 18 U.S.C. 1507. You can look it up. Now, you might say, well, I don't like that law. I don't think it's just.
I
think
it's
a violation.
It's applicable here. I just don't think it's applicable at the homes of these individuals in Virginia, based on lawyers I've spoken to. Neither you or I are lawyers, so we may just be.
But I can read the law. I mean,
further.
The statute is plain. Are you saying that you don't think that the protesters are seeking to influence the decision?
I haven't spoken to them, so I really can't say. But
you can hear what they're saying, right?
What's that?
You can hear the sort of things that they're chanting. They're not saying.
I actually have not heard what they're chanting. I have not. Okay. I don't know what are they chanting? You tell me.
They're chanting "My body, my choice." They're chanting.
My body, my choice isn't change the decision.
Of course it is.
That's just their opinion, right? My body, my choice.
They're chanting in support of the ruling that will be overruled by the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case.
And this is what David Pakman does. He acts like he's in a spelling bee. He's like, could you please define the word? Could you tell me the country of origin? It's like, bro, just spell the word. It's very obvious. All you have to do is listen to the protesters. All you have to do is have some kind of discernment, and you understand what's going on. These people are protesting outside of these judges' homes, trying to influence the judge's decision. But David Pakman, he likes to try to act like he's smart and intelligent by, tell me a little bit more. Oh, I conveniently haven't heard what they're saying. It's like, dude, how are you even involved in this conversation if you don't even know the variables involved with it? It's so crazy how this dude has such a popular platform, and it's kind of shameful, honestly, that so many people want to hear what he has to say. But anyways, let's continue.
Listen, I think that if we want to get into the minutia of this at the legal level, I think you would have a hard time arguing that legally saying my body, my choice is equivalent to saying change your decision. So I don't know,
David,
that this is the best path for us.
what would they be doing outside of the justices' homes before a decision comes out, after a leaked opinion?
Expressing their opinion. I mean, listen,
but
legally,
their
I don't think
opinion,
you're going to win on that. I don't think you're going to win on legally they were breaking the law because they said my body, my choice. It seems very weak.
No, David, they're not merely saying my body, my choice, and they're not merely posting some opinion online. They're going to the homes of these people. Actually, the group that sent them, it's called Ruth Sent Us, they said that this is an unacceptable attack on women and LGBT, and we need to force them, right? That was the key word. We need to force them to change their views using a diversity of tactics. And we would acknowledge that peaceful protesting is just one tactic, so it seems like they're calling for other things. But even that word force, what is that word force?
Michael, now you're blending, now you're saying, well, they've used peaceful protesting, but they're calling for other things.
No, but
so they've broken.
That isn't my problem. No, I mean, I think that is a separate issue. But the very fact that the organization that sent, I'm sorry.
But you introduced it in this conversation.
That's a problem as well, that they're calling for a diversity of tactics. But the chief problem that we're discussing here is that the organization that is taking responsibility for sending the mobs to the justices' homes says we need to force them to change their minds. We need to force them to not attack women and LGBT and all of the other minority groups that they're discussing. So even the word force would suggest to me that they are attempting to influence the decision and therefore are in violation of this law.
Yeah, I'm not trying to skirt the main point you're trying to make, which I am unsure I can identify, but I haven't seen that specifically said, so it's just hard for me to comment on it. I can
you're pleading ignorance on this point.
No, I'm not pleading ignorance. What I can speak to is, if any crime has been committed, charge them.
Okay.
I'm totally with that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Do you think now, from your perspective as a reasonable Democrat, if you were advising Democrats?
I'm not a Democrat. I've never been associated with the Democratic Party.
Really? What,
yeah.
Are you in any party or you're just independent?
No. Yeah, I'm just independent.
You would generally vote for Democrats, I would assume.
I vote for more Democrats than Republicans. I don't care about parties, though. I see parties essentially almost like corporations that justify their own existence to just continue existing in opposition to the other party.
Do you really vote for Republicans?
I voted for many. There's lots of nonpartisan local elections where I later found out some of the people were not Democrats. But I mean, it's kind of neither here nor there.
Okay. So, but you're not formally in the Democrat Party. If you were advising a Democratic candidate, or any candidate for that matter, who is on the left, would you advise them to continue running on this issue of abortion, on this issue of for instance, the bill that the Democrats last night tried to pass, it failed in the Senate. They said it was to codify Roe versus Wade. It actually went further to create even more abortion protections. Would you advise them to run on this issue in the midterms or to back away from it in the midterms?
So run on it. I think that there's from a political strategy standpoint, there's two options. One would be run on the bill that failed yesterday. That doesn't seem like a good idea to run on that.
Yeah.
I think where there is, based on public opinion about abortion being as in favor of it as ever before during the Roe v. Wade era, public polling is now in the 60-70% of Americans believe abortion should generally be legal in most cases. That's not in every case, but in most cases. Based on that, it seems to me it would be prudent to run on, we need to get the government out of medical decisions between women and doctors. I mean, and again, you and I are never going to agree on something like when does life begin. That's a different.
We might agree on that. I had a gal who came.
Whoa, hold on. But let me at least finish my sentence.
Sure.
You asked me about strategy. It seems to me that since most Americans think abortion should be legal in most cases, the right strategy thing would be we need to get the federal government out of in the middle of these medical decisions.
But right now, if you let's say that the leaked opinion actually ends up being the final decision. Let's say that Roe v. Wade is overruled instantly, as Elizabeth Warren says, abortion is severely restricted, if not outlawed, in more than half of the states. Instantly, you're in a very different situation. Sure. Knowing that there are all sorts of polls. There's polls that show that 94% of Americans reject the absolutist view of abortion held by some Democrats. There are polls, as you cite, that show that when you ask the question, do you support Roe versus Wade broadly, then there is some majority of Americans that broadly want some abortion liberality.
But Michael, that's very mealy-mouthed. I mean, let's just be honest. Asked the same way, over the last 50 years, support for Roe v. Wade has continued to go up. Fair?
Well, it depends how you ask the question. If you ask
the same way over the last 50 years,
if you ask,
it has gone up.
If you ask the question in a way that is, I think, hiding the reality of abortion and is just talking about the decision Roe versus Wade, then sure, there's broad support for it. But if you ask the question and you say, do you support this type of abortion? Do you support this type of abortion? Do you support? Then the support is much smaller.
See,
this is why the bill failed yesterday.
You're creating distinctions only to create doubt when the point I'm making is over the last 50 years, generally overall, should abortion generally be legal in most cases? Support has gone up. You can admit that and still be against it.
No, but David, the problem is the devil is in the details, because I mean, I've got a poll right here that goes into depth on different aspects of abortion polling. That depending on how you phrase the question, you get very different answers. So I guess my point is this. According to some of this polling, very few voters and very few independent voters support abortion as a top policy issue. It does not seem to motivate a whole lot of people to go to the polls.
Fair. I would agree with that. I agree with that.
So therefore, in that case, if you were advising these candidates, you might say, okay, just keep using the same lines that Democrats have used since Roe versus Wade. But if you were talking about focusing a campaign, I think there are a lot of Democrats right now who say, we're going to run on this. This is going to motivate everyone to go to the polls. Make your campaign about abortion. Would you say that's a good strategy, or would you say, hey, maybe back off a little bit and talk about, I don't know, gas prices?
No. I don't think that's a good strategy. I mean, again, this is less about my opinion, but it's about what the facts show. The facts show that economic issues are far more important when it comes to running national campaigns. So I mean, no disagreement there. These are just strategy questions. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. There was polling that came out yesterday that showed that on the abortion question, in as much as it does motivate people, it's actually the Roe v. Wade overruling seems to be propelling Republicans at almost 2x the rate as Democrats. So anyway, listen, David, I knew that you would be much more reasonable than Joe Biden. David, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for coming on, though, as always.
Oh my God, it's over. We haven't even talked about anything yet.
We've got, well, I think as I gave you a compliment, but thankfully that's missing too. I think that you've presented a more reasonable view than the White House has. I think you've presented better political advice than the White House has for their own party. And so I appreciate you for coming on. Where can people find you?
Nobody cares about where people can find David Pakman. In closing, I'll just say that I think it's hilarious that David Pakman has claimed that he's voted for a Republican in the past, yet he only realized it after he voted for them. I could be wrong, so let me know in the comments, but isn't there an R or a D next to every single person on a ballot when you go and vote? Maybe just it's only been like that in the states that I've voted in before, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Like I said, one thing's for sure, David Pakman is not going to vote for any Republicans anytime soon, especially in 2024. But he's a progressive, so it's all for the sake of progress. And I like to refer to this quote from Ian Crossland from an episode where he was on the Timcast IRL, and they were talking about progressives, and he's like, going forward for the sake of going forward is not always good. And he used the example, when you're going forward and you get to the edge of a cliff, it makes more sense to sometimes take a step back and reassess your position and then change directions and go forward from there. And that's something that David Pakman, I don't think has ever done in his whole entire life. I could be wrong. With that, I think I'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.